Hello students, I welcome you all in today's class for preparation of GATE examination. This class is being conducted under the Prerna scheme, which is being sponsored by All India Council for Technical Education, New Delhi. Before starting the lecture, I would like to introduce myself. I am Mohit Singh Katoch, working as Assistant Professor in Civil Engineering Department of Tulsiramji Gaikwad Patil, College of Engineering and Technology, Nagpur. Today, we are going to study the subject environmental engineering, and the topic is going to be water treatment operations and processes. So what is water treatment and why it is needed? So water treatment is a very important fundamental parameter which has to be achieved before we send the water to the houses of the consumers. So why it is needed? It is needed to kill all the pathogenic germs which are harmful to human health. If these germs are not killed, they will create various health problems and diseases in human beings. To remove the unpleasant and objectionable taste and odors from the water. If the water is having some smell or an unusual taste, nobody will be ready to drink that water. So it is very important to remove such unpleasant and objectionable tastes and odors. Similarly, if the color of the water is not good, again, no one will drink that water. So it is important to remove the dissolved gases and the color of water. Water treatment is also required to make water fit for domestic, industrial as well as commercial uses. Last but not the least, it is needed to remove the microorganisms and the colloidal matters which are present in the water, and you can say in the raw water. So to achieve all these objectives, treatment of water is very much important. So this diagram is very important. It shows the flow sheet of various unit operations and process which have to be placed in a certain order so that we can achieve maximum treatment of raw water and the most clean water can be sent to the homes of the consumer. So first stage is the collection of raw water. So water is drawn from lakes, rivers or reservoirs, or can be drawn from groundwater storage using boreholes. So for collection of raw water from lakes, rivers and reservoirs, we use intake structures and jack wells. With the help of these intake structures, we withdraw water from these raw water sources. With the help of rising mains and other pipelines, we send this water to the water treatment plant. So at the water treatment plant, the first stage which this water encounters is the screening process. So this screening helps to remove large matter from water such as leaves and rubbish using a wire mesh. This prevents the debris from causing obstructions within the facility, making further treatment of water easier in further processes. After the screening, next stage is the addition of coagulants. Between both these stages, there is one more stage which we can apply, and that is known as aeration. Here we use cascade aerators to increase the dissolved oxygen content of the water so that iron and manganese can be removed and certain amount of bacteria can be killed. As you may know that higher the concentration of dissolved oxygen in the water, purer is the water. So it is desired that the dissolved oxygen is on a higher side in the water. So aeration process helps us to achieve the desired level of dissolved oxygen. So after that, coagulants are added. Coagulants such as aluminum sulfate and ferric chloride are mixed into the water. These make particles of dirt and dissolved substances in the water clump together or agglomerate together so that they become heavy, they form flocks, and they can be easily removed either from flotation or from the bottom of the tank. One thing to remember here in this coagulant process is aluminum sulfate is basically used in drinking water treatment plants as a coagulant, and ferric chloride is basically used as coagulants in wastewater treatment plants. So this is a very important question which can be asked in the GATE examination. Amongst all these, which coagulant is most prominently used in wastewater treatment plant? Then you must not write aluminum sulfate. The correct answer would be ferric chloride. So remember, two names are given here, aluminum sulfate and ferric chloride. So aluminum sulfate, commonly known as alum, is used as a coagulant in drinking water treatment plants, and ferric chloride is used in wastewater treatment plants. After the coagulation, next stage is sedimentation. So sedimentation is also of two types. If coagulation is not done, then we say that the unit is using plain sedimentation process, and if coagulants are added, then we say that the sedimentation is with the help of coagulants. Under slow mixing, after the addition of coagulants, the clumped particles increase in size, a process called as flocculation. So in this flocculation, flocks are formed, and how they are formed? The positively charged coagulant particles attracts the negatively charged suspended impurities. These impurities are attracted towards the coagulant particle. They stick to that, they increase in size and weight, and that newly formed object is known as flock, and the process is known as flocculation. After getting heavier in weight, these flocks generally tend to settle down at the bottom of the tank. Most of them sink to the bottom and form a sludge, which can be removed from the water, treated and disposed of. In some cases, flocks are of some special gaseous components. They tend to come at the top of the level when they attract suspended impurities, and they can be removed with the help of flotation and manual scrapping. So sedimentation process helps in removing the suspended impurities with the help of a process known as flocculation. Next process is filtration. After screening, aeration, sedimentation, some particles remains in the water. These are removed with the help of a process known as filtration through coal, sand and gravel beds. They are cleaned by pumping air and water backwards through them. That is, backwashing is done when the efficiency of these filters reduces. So to clean these filters, we use backwashing of water and air. After the filtration, next stage is generally disinfection, which is also known as chlorination. But if we find out that the pH is not in proper limits, then we do pH correction. Water that is too acidic can lead to water pipe corrosion. It can be passed through a filter containing crushed limestone, mainly calcium carbonate, to raise the pH. Acids can be added if the pH is too high. So in this way, pH correction is achieved so that water pipe corrosion can be avoided. Agents such as orthophosphates can be added to the water, particularly in areas with lead pipes. So when lead pipes are used in certain areas, we can add orthophosphates. These agents form lead phosphate complexes on the inside of the pipes, stopping lead from getting into the water. So lead poisoning is a very dangerous situation. So to avoid this type of lead poisoning, orthophosphate and these type of agents can be used, which are known as anti-corrosion agents. After that, the next stage is disinfection. Here we kill the remaining bacteria which are disease producing and all the viruses. For this, chlorine is used. So chlorine is added to water to kill the bacteria and viruses. This helps in preventing the waterborne diseases like cholera and typhoid. Apart from chlorine, ozone can also be used instead of this chlorine, and this also avoids disinfection byproducts. When chlorine is used, there is generation of some disinfection byproducts. But when we use ozone as a disinfectant, the byproducts are negligible. So this is a benefit of ozone if we use it in place of chlorine. After this chlorination, residual chlorine in the water safeguard against pathogens. Fluorides can be added after chlorination to help prevent tooth decay. So after chlorination, we send the water to the houses of the consumers. But if there is some leakage or damage in the distribution pipeline, some contaminants can enter the water pipeline and the treated water will again get contaminated. So to prevent these type of contamination and to kill the bacteria which enter the pipeline from these contamination and leakages, we add some residual chlorine amount, which is generally around 2 mg per liter, 2 ppm. So this residual chlorine helps in killing off some contamination which may happen in the distribution pipe network. So in this way, entire water treatment is achieved from raw water collection to house distribution. We will now see these stages in detail, and we will particularly focus on sedimentation and filtration. Chlorination can be achieved using certain different parameters. There are various types of chlorination. Basically, there are pre-chlorination, post-chlorination, double chlorination, superchlorination, dechlorination, and breakpoint chlorination. So breakpoint chlorination is what? After adding chlorine, germs starts getting destroyed. A level comes when there is no bacteria or germ present to be killed by chlorine. After this point, that is beyond this point, if we add chlorine in water, it will remain as residual chlorine, extra chlorine in water, and with time it will start acting like a impurity. So breakpoint chlorination is very important parameter to identify the optimum dose of chlorine. So how much chlorine is required in particular type of water, we can analyze in our laboratories, and we will add that much required amount of chlorine only, and that point is known as breakpoint chlorination, which is the highest amount of chlorine required to kill all the bacteria present in the water. So keep this in mind. So this is the raw water collection chamber. From the source, water comes into the water treatment plant through this raw water collection chamber. The initial stage is screening. The screening helps in the removal of any floating objects like leaves, branches, fishes, weeds, etc. from the raw water source. So these wire mesh bar screens helps in removal of all these floating objects. After this bar screening, mechanical screening can also be adopted. This mechanical screening helps in automatic cleaning of the bar screens. So manual labor is not required if we apply mechanical screening of the bar screens. After screening, The first process, as I told you, is aeration, dissolving oxygen into the water to remove smell and taste, promote helpful bacteria to grow, and precipitate nuisance metals like iron and manganese. These are the objectives of aeration process. For this, cascade aerators are used. This is an actual photograph from Gangtok water treatment plant, and you can see cascade aerator, that is stepped aerators. So water enters from the top. If I can show you the pointer, from this top level of the cascade aerator, and it falls from every step. And when it falls from each step, due to formation of eddies, the atmospheric oxygen and gases tends to get mixed in the water, and with this each step the dissolved oxygen content of the water tends to increase, and with the help of this dissolved oxygen we can remove smell and taste, bacteria, and precipitate nuisance metals like iron and manganese. This is another type of aerator which is known as spray aerator. In this, instead of passing the water through certain steps, we allow the water to enter a tank through spray jets. And when these spray jets travel from the spray nozzles to the water tank, during their flight, they comes in contact with the oxygen, and the dissolved oxygen content increases in the tank. So this is also an actual photograph of spray aerator. On the right side, we can see slate tray aerator. This is another type of aerator. In this, certain trays are present on the left side. Water enters from the topmost level, that is inlet, and just like cascade aerator, there were steps. Here there are trays, and water flows over these trays, and after passing through each tray, the dissolved oxygen content increases in the water. The water is collected at the bottom and is then sent to further processes. After aeration comes sedimentation. The sedimentation is necessary for removal of suspended matters which are having higher specific gravity than water, and also fine suspended matter. And in sedimentation, we try to achieve sedimentation with two processes. First is plain sedimentation, and second is sedimentation with the help of coagulation. So we will see what is coagulation, flocculation, filtration, and disinfection. So coagulation and flocculation causes the agglomeration and sedimentation of suspended solid particles through the addition of a coagulating agents, usually aluminum sulfate or iron sulfate, ferric sulfate, to the raw water along with a polymer to help form a floc. And when flocs are formed, the process is known as flocculation, and these flocs tends to increase in weight and size, and they travels to the bottom of the tank from where they can be removed as sludge. After sedimentation, the next process is filtration, where microorganisms and colloidal matters are removed. For filtration, we use either slow sand filter, rapid sand filter, or pressure filters. Slow sand filter is an outdated technology. It is almost obsolete in present scenario, as its efficiency is very less and it requires very large space. We generally tend to provide only rapid sand filter or pressure filters in congested urban areas. After filtration, the next step is the disinfection. So pre-chlorination and dechlorination mostly are used to kill algae that would otherwise grow and clog the water filters. Disinfection also kills much of the remaining unprotected bacteria. And if the source of raw water is groundwater, then we know that there may be hardness in that raw water. So softening process is used to remove this hardness from water before sending the water to the household consumers. So we will now have a look on the theory of coagulation, how coagulation and flocculation helps in sedimentation. So coagulation is the destabilization of colloids by addition of chemicals that neutralize the negative charge. So we know that there are basically three types of impurities: suspended impurities, dissolved impurities, and colloidal impurities. These are the three major impurities in water. So colloidal impurities are the most, we can say, difficult to control, as they are negatively charged particles. They are in constant motion, which is known as Brownian motion. So they collide with each other and continuously stay in flotation. So we use certain chemicals which are known as coagulants. These coagulants are positively charged particles. They attract these negatively charged colloidal particles towards them and creates a new object known as floc. And when flocs are formed, the process is known as flocculation. So these coagulants are added with the help of certain mixing devices. We can either use mixing basins with baffle valves. These valves helps in changing the direction of water for a small duration, and whenever a change in direction of water occurs, there is some formation of eddies, and these eddies are the perfect spot to add these coagulants into the raw water. So because eddies will help in natural mixing of coagulant with the water. So these baffle valves can be used, and also mixing basin with mechanical devices can also be used, which is known as flash mixer. Baffle valves, mixing basin with baffle valves require large areas, but flash mixers, which is a mechanical device, requires very small space and can give higher efficiency in efficient mixing of coagulant with the raw water. So this diagram shows horizontal or round type mixing basin with baffle valves. So you can see baffle valves are arranged in a zigzag manner, and whenever the direction is changed at that particular spot, we can add certain quantity of coagulant. So rapid or flash mixing, as I told you about flash mixer, it is the process by which a coagulant is rapidly and uniformly dispersed through the mass of water. This process usually occurs in a small basin immediately preceding or at the head of the coagulation basin. Generally, the detention period is 30 to 60 seconds and the head loss is 20 to 60 centimeters of water. Keep this 30 to 60 seconds detention period time in your mind. It can be asked in the GATE examination. What is the detention period of a rapid or flash mixer? So the answer is 30 to 60 seconds. Here colloids are destabilized and the nucleus for the floc is formed. So flocculation occurs and these flocs tends to travel towards the bottom of the tank. Slow mixing brings the contact between the finely divided destabilized matter formed during rapid mixing. So after flash mixing, we can provide a certain tank where slow mixing can be done, and this will further enhance the efficiency of floc removal. So this diagram shows the coagulation process. In the first diagram, we can see impurities are scattered everywhere in the water. Coagulant is added. After the addition of coagulant, precipitate is formed which traps the impurities. The negatively charged impurities are attracted toward the positively charged coagulant particle. These coagulant particles trap the negatively charged impurities, and after certain duration, the precipitate which has trapped the impurities settle down at the bottom as in the form of sludge, and this sludge can be removed easily, and we can take clear water from the top layer of the tank. So in this way, coagulation and flocculation is achieved. So what is flocculation? As I told you in the previous diagram, flocculation is the agglomeration, that is combination, joining of destabilized particles into a large size particle known as floc, which can be effectively removed by sedimentation or flotation. So this is a diagram of mechanical flocculator which can be used to remove these flocs. Hydraulic flocculation, horizontal baffle tanks and vertical baffle tanks also can be used to achieve this flocculation. In horizontal baffle tank, the water flows horizontally. The baffle walls helps to create turbulence and thus facilitates the mixing. In vertically baffled tanks, the water flows vertically. The baffle wall helps to create turbulence and thus facilitates mixing. So in both these horizontal and vertical baffle wall tanks, you can see in the diagram, horizontal tank has been shown in a plan view, that is in a top view. We can see how water is changing the direction from left to right, and this turbulence helps in mixing of coagulants. In vertically baffled tanks, we are seeing an isometric view, and we can see that the water is flowing in a vertical direction. It is going in below direction of a tank, then it is going from above the tank, then again it is going from below the tank, and so on. So this is a basic difference between horizontal baffle tank and vertical baffle tank. And this is an actual photograph of horizontal hydraulic flocculator. The water moves in left and right direction. Clarifier. After flocculation, water enters the settling tank, which is commonly known as clarifier. And there is one unit known as clariflocculator, where flocculator and clarifier both are provided as one single unit known as clariflocculator. In this clariflocculator, clarification and flocculation, both the processes happen simultaneously in a single unit, and hence the name clariflocculator. In clariflocculator, there is a chamber which is provided in the center, and clarifier compartment is formed by the peripheral space. So there is a diagram of clariflocculator we can see. In this clariflocculator, in the center, flocculation takes place and clarification takes place at the peripheral boundary of the tank. So this is a diagram of clariflocculator, in which clarification is happening on the peripheral boundaries and flocculation is happening at the center. This is an actual photograph of clariflocculator. Next process is the filtration process. The process of passing the water through the bed of granular materials is known as filtration. So water is passed through a bed of sand, gravel, and water is filtered out so that suspended impurities and bacteria can be removed. So for filtration, basically there are two main types of filters. First is slow sand gravity filter, and second is rapid sand filter. Rapid sand filter is again classified into two types: rapid sand gravity filter and rapid sand pressure filter. We will see all these in detail. So slow sand filters are used in water purification for treating raw water to produce a potable product. They are typically 1 to 2 meters deep, can be rectangular or cylindrical in cross section, and are used primarily to treat surface water. These slow sand filters are periodically cleaned by removing, cleaning, and replacing the upper few inches of biologically active sand. So if the sand surface is around 50 to 60 centimeter, only first few centimeters are scrapped and removed. If new sand is available, it is replaced. If it is difficult to find new sand, that scrapped sand is cleaned, dried, and then again placed in its original place. So in this way, cleaning and working of slow sand filters is achieved. Generally, slow sand filters filter water at a rate of about 100 to 200 liters per hour per meter square of area available. If we compare this to rapid sand filters generally have a rate of filtration of around 3000 to 6000 liters per hour per meter square of area available. So we can see a very high difference in the rate of filtration of slow sand filters and rapid sand filters. But there is one more difference. The rate of cleaning is also different for both these filters. Slow sand filters are generally required to be cleaned in 1 to 2 months duration, whereas rapid sand filters require cleaning in every 2 to 3 days. So this is a diagram of slow sand filter. We can see there is an inlet chamber at the left. Water enters in this inlet chamber. Then from the top opening, water enters into this filter tank. There is a layer of sand available, which is a biologically active sand filter media. Below that, there is a layer of gravel. Both these helps in the purification of water. Drop by drop, water travels in the direction in the bottom direction, and these drops are collected using the under drainage system. All these under drainage pipes combine together into a main drainage pipe, which then connects to the outlet chamber, and clean water can be taken out from this outlet pipe. One thing to remember here is the maximum height of water in this filter chamber above the sand should not exceed the limit of around 75 centimeter, because after that the pressure will be so high that this sand filter media will be replaced and from its original place, and the filter will stop working. So the maximum height up to which the water can be kept inside this chamber is 75 centimeter. Now we will see rapid sand filter. Rapid sand filtration is a purely physical drinking water purification method. Rapid sand filters provide rapid and efficient removal of relatively large suspended particles. There are, as I told you, two types of rapid sand filters. First is rapid gravity sand filter, and second is rapid pressure sand filter. We will see both these rapid sand filters. But before that, the biggest disadvantage of slow sand filter is that it requires very large area due to slow filtration rate. I told you the filtration rate is around 100 to 200 liters per hour per meter square of available area, and the rate of filtration of rapid sand filter is 3000 to 6000 liters per hour per meter square area available. This large area requirement make it uneconomical for places where land is very costly in urban areas. In order to reduce requirement of space and to increase the rate of filtration, a lot of research was conducted, which finally led to the development of rapid sand filter. And because of this only, we can say that slow sand filters are an obsolete technology. It is outdated technology, and we now adopt rapid sand filters in every water treatment plant. Rapid sand filters have filter rates of around 40 times those of slow sand filters. I already told you 100 and 3000. There is a very major difference in the rate of filtration. The major parts of a rapid sand filter are filter tank or a filter box, filter sand, the gravel support bed, the under drainage system, the wash water troughs, and filter bed agitators. These are used for cleaning purpose of the filter bed. You can see how multiple rapid sand filter beds are provided. Even if one bed gets choked up, there are some standby units which can be used to attain the efficiency level, even if some repairing work is in progress. Pressure filters, this is second type of rapid sand filters. So pressure filters are used extensively in iron and manganese removal plants. So where iron and manganese are present in higher quantity, higher percentage in water, and it is very important to remove this iron and manganese, we use pressure filters. A pressure sand filter is contained under pressure in a steel tank, which may be vertical or horizontal, depending on the space available. As with gravity filters, the media is usually sand or a combination of media, and filtration rates are similar to gravity filters, generally rapid sand gravity filters. So groundwater is first aerated to oxidize the iron or manganese and then pumped through the filter to remove the suspended material. So keep this in mind. This question may be asked: to remove iron and manganese in industrial plants, which type of sand filter is used? So the correct answer is rapid sand pressure filter. So keep this point in mind. This is a diagram of rapid sand filter in pressure type. So you can see it is an enclosed steel tank. This is the major difference between pressure filter and gravity filters. Both the slow sand filter and rapid sand gravity filter were open to atmosphere, whereas this pressure filter is enclosed inside a steel tank, and the entire filtration process happens inside this steel tank. So with this, we have reached to end of today's topic. This session is now open for question answers. If you are having any doubt, you can ask me. Thank you very much.